Hello there and welcome to this investor update for the month of June. June's not quite over yet, however I've got a bit of work coming up throughout the rest of the week, so I wanted to get this out ahead of that, so while I've got a bit of time this afternoon. I'm going to try and put some charts and stuff using complicated graphical things throughout this presentation, so this may be less polished. Anyway, so investment performance over the last month has been pretty poor across the board. There's been a whole variety of economic conditions that have conspired to make more or less everything lose a little bit of money. We've more or less gone sideways throughout June, which has been a bit annoying, and performance is largely sort of slightly negative. As you can see from risk level 1, cautious investors, we are ahead of the markets, and we are ahead of what you might think of as being discretionary fund managers. I've put two indices on there. The first one being the mixed investment sector. That's kind of like your multi-asset funds, and then the other one is ARC, and that's kind of representative of discretionary fund managers. So it's kind of like the public multi-asset guys, and then the sort of the more private multi-asset guys. It's a bit of a reflection of both there. So I've tried to put them both on there to give you a bit of an idea as to where we are. And as you can see, risk level 1, and you'll see as we go through the risk levels that performance is still ahead of them. It's actually ahead of them all over the last month and over the last year and longer term. So performance is in terms of what we're doing, in terms of the decisions we've made, they seem to be going okay. What's coming up? Well, it's difficult to see where markets are going to go next. The reason for a lot of this dampening is that central banks, not just in the UK, but central banks across the world, are still tightening. That means they're putting up the interest rate, and that's a form of tightening. And what that does is that puts the screws on the economy, and it reduces corporate profitability. Okay, that reduction in corporate profitability is supposed to lead to a reduction in inflation. However, it seems that global economies are pretty resilient to that kind of mechanic, reducing inflation. There are a whole load of reasons for that, predominantly being that inflation isn't really caused by excess income or excess spending by normal people. It's caused by commodity price spikes. So realistically, it seems a bit foolish to be, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, it seems a bit foolish to be putting up interest rates, because all that's doing is having a negative impact on the markets. It's having a negative impact on prices. It's having a negative impact on profitability, and it's not seemingly tackling inflation in the way that I think central bankers would like it to. So they've really got to, I think the solution to inflation is a political one. It's a fiscal solution, not a monetary solution, to use the technical terms, but it's something really for politicians to start to deal with rather than relying on central banks, because the tools that central banks have clearly aren't working. So let's not do that, and let's try something else, I would suggest. However, so until central banks start to reverse their methodology, we're going to continue to see this kind of sideways trajectory. The good news is it seems that most central banks are talking about this being more or less the top. So this is about as bad as it's going to get interest rate wise. We can't do anything about that. This happened before. If anybody remembers, if anybody was invested and remembers 2012, there was a thing called the taper tantrum there. It was through 2012, 13, 14, where returns were pretty subdued for 3 years. We are still seeing some positive returns over the year and over the longer term. So all of this is just going to have a dampening effect on returns. You can see risk level 2, again, it's a similar picture, and Risk level 3, again, we're outperforming our peers, we're behind inflation. Risk level 4, it's the same picture, and risk level 5, it's the same again. So whatever level of risk you are, we are doing better than our peers. We are not keeping pace with inflation. It's just the markets are conspiring against us at the moment. And well, it's not even the markets, actually. The markets are doing quite well, all things considered. It's just that central bankers seem to have this they've got what this rate of inflation is wrong, and they're making bad calls because the neoclassical economic model once again begins to fail. It began to fail previously in 2008. I don't know whether you remember the global financial crisis. I'm not saying this is going to be as bad or anywhere near as bad as that, so don't worry. I mean, I hope they're not going to do something absolutely mental. However, I wouldn't rule it out entirely, and also it's probably worth bearing in mind that in 2008, I'm not saying it's all different now, but the situation was quite different. I mean, in 2008, essentially, a few banks started to go bust, and then George Bush decided not to bail out the latest one, which was at the time Lehman Brothers, and then the whole deck of cards just collapsed. This time round, there's been a commodity price spike, which has prompted a high level of price increases, which governments have confusedly mistaken as being inflation. And then they've done the classic neoclassical economic thing of let's put up interest rates to combat inflation. Whereas actually they've not looked at the root causes of inflation. And so in actual fact, them putting up the central interest rates, the Bank of England base rate being one, like central bank's interest rate, then putting that up may indeed be having a negative effect on inflation, or it might even indeed be causing excess inflation. Your average household that's got a mortgage, they're going to be really struggling at the moment. And so them seeing that mortgage go up, they're really not going to be happy about that. And in fact, you're seeing people selling houses to move back into rental because rental is somehow cheaper in some places. So there's a whole lot of weird stuff going on in the property markets, and property markets going badly really annoy people. Like really public satisfaction levels shoot through the floor when housing markets aren't working very well. So hopefully the politicians will get their heads around a table and then start to work out a way of how they can actually get inflation under control, because the solution, in my opinion, is a political one and not a monetary one. Central banks can't, and eventually the central bankers have got to realise this and do something sensible. But anyway, that's my review of June, and a little look forward to the future. Essentially, June's been a bit meh, but actually things are, apart from central banks consistently making mistakes, things economically globally are kind of okay at the moment. The world is turning in the right direction. The economic world is turning. Obviously, the world always does. Anyway, the economic world is turning in the right direction. If you've liked the video, please click on the like button. Again, please subscribe if you want to hear more from me. We've got a few interesting videos coming up soon when I finally get round to getting them approved and edited and all the rest. So they'll be quite interesting. And I hope you have a great day. Something else. Make a comment. Even if it's just, don't care. Comments help the algorithm apparently or something. Yeah, so I hope you have a great day.